Good. Thank you. It's good to be with you. There are a number of these sessions. This is our first one. My colleague Margaret happens to be in town, so we can do something together. I'm Christopher Corbally, as announced there. I've been with the Vatican Observatory for a good number of years, over 40 of them in Tucson. And I'm also a Jesuit and so Catholic priest as well. And Margaret and I have been working for about just over a dozen years. And we first were thinking about the origins of humans, and now what's the future of humans? So that's me. How about Margaret?
Oh, I think I'm supposed to say what I am. I'm by training an anthropologist and a biologist, and I've been into space science mostly through neuroscience, and for about 12 years now. Yeah.
Okay, lovely. So
use this?
yeah, you can use that. That's the two mics. So I think the picture on the right-hand side says everything. The Earth in 1972, wow, beautiful. And Earth has already been shown this morning in 2025. Quite a difference. And that's the situation. So I'll outline a little bit more, not only of current, but of future. Oh, we were told this morning by Justin that there are, count them all, 11,000 satellites there around the Earth, and I'm sure you can count them all. Wow. Current. What's happening in the future? New space era. The space station is due to be decommissioned in 2030. So that's only 5 years' time. And then we'll have an enormous number of commercial stations, other stations such as Axiom Station, Orbital Reef, Starlab, Life Pathfinder, StarMax, and VAST, and maybe you can add to that as well. So there's going to be increasing use of space, low Earth orbit, particularly for functions including medical research, to observation, tourism, communications, and of course, as continuing now, monitoring of Earth-size environmental consideration, conditions. A lot of then research and also manufacturing as well, which is there's things that can be done in space that are much more difficult to be done on Earth, and we think they're going to be more economically done in space. Things are going to increase. There are going to be all kinds of people behind that, national, multinational, military installations, all kinds. Multiple responsible parties, who are they? All over, pushing the meanings of international and interplanetary. So yeah, everything's needing broad approach to governance and regulation. So, look at the top part, you can read the rest, but this is Jeff Warner's picture over about 36 hours of the sky from part in US. And basically you're seeing two streams of Starlink there, as well as other satellites, including, that are routing through there, including, I believe, the Chinese space station. Okay, that's current. There are Starlink and other such communication satellites, about just over 8,000 at the moment. 100,000 are being planned. There may not be space for them all, because an MIT study just recently come out has shown that with the warming of the Earth, so the lower atmosphere is warmed, leaving a cooler upper atmosphere and less drag for the satellites that are going to be there, less chance of them being taken out of orbit. And communication satellites eventually planned 500,000. Can you imagine? So it is a real problem. That's near Earth. There's problem is not confined. What you do, you kick those satellites you don't need any longer out further, but be careful where you do so. Certainly not around our moon. NASA's Gateway is going to be quite a crucial craft, but both for easier access to moon surface and uninterrupted Earth to moon communication, so on any side of the moon and beyond. Deep space scientific research, it's going to go out to 70,000 kilometers from the moon on a highly elliptical orbit. It's going to be in deep space, so all kinds of important things for that. Okay, we're getting an idea of the problem. So it's not just near Earth, also cislunar in the whole sense of the word. Margaret, what do we do about it?
I had a lifetime of work in Washington, D.C. My whole career was there. And so I fastened on the word governance because it was one of the options given in the papers. Okay, governance is one of those big words, 75-cent word. What does it mean? And especially, what does it mean in terms of space debris, especially satellites? Level 1 is really statements of principles, mission statements, and Artemis Accords. You know, there are some Artemis Accords that NASA has written. They have been updated, you should know. And the people who handle those Artemis Accords and the negotiations to get different countries to sign are the lawyers at the US State Department. So it's now being done out of State Department, not out of NASA. So those missions, those principles, those ideas, those visions are level 1. Level 2, this really is the problem. Not only do we have nation state space programs, we've got orbital stations now that are owned by commercial companies. And then we have spacecraft going to the moon and back and all around. We've got a number of different kind of entities. How are you going to get all those entities and all those governments and all those commercial companies to agree on protocols for space debris mitigation? Big problem. So policy development, your third level. 4, regulations. You know, nobody wants to talk about regulations in the United States, right? They're supposed to be bad. There's a whole building called OIRA in Washington, the Office of Information and Regulatory Affairs. It's part of the White House. And they make sure that the agencies write the regulations according to the policy of the sitting government. Well, lots of regulations and possibly fees and fines, incentives and disincentives to handle waste appropriately or not. So it is going to be a complex effort to get all those different entities to agree to all those different things. And then in the future, there has to be an organization, I felt anyway, that would review new technologies to take out different kinds of debris. The best thing that we found is that it's not one thing that's going to get rid of this debris. It's not just hauling the satellites down and having them burn up in the atmosphere. There's a bunch of little stuff too. And there's also some bigger stuff that sometimes lands on the far side of the moon. Did you hear about that? And so different mitigation technologies are going to have to be employed all at once. Whenever I have this conversation with people, it ends one way. And they say, this is not going to happen until there's a disaster. This is not going to happen until there's just a terrible crash. And then maybe we'll start thinking about it. Okay, I do want to mention that what happens in the United States is policy is developed very often at the state level. And so like Arizona decides to regulate this and New York decides to regulate that. And if you're sitting in the Hill writing laws which is what Hill staffers do, you look at what the other states have done. Okay, well, there's a little bit of stuff happening around the earth. One of them is SGAC, SGAC. They're looking at the economic, legal, and political challenges to the space debris problem. There is one country, and don't be surprised, it's ESA, the European Space Agency, which has the most advanced full structure to address space debris, but it's only for ESA projects. So you could replicate that. So that Hill staffer might want to replicate what California is doing, right, on a national level, if you're looking for a model. ESA is really the model you want to look at. They have a director general and so forth. So those are your levels. And did I stay in my time?
I think we're good.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Questions?
From talking to people who are, this is speaking about the Earth orbit problem, not the 600 problem, is that commercial operators understand that there ought to be regulation of orbiting satellites, especially the legacy operators. They understand it's a risk to their business, but they want someone else to do the regulation for them. And then, you know, asking, I mean, the real leverage here is probably the FCC and launch permits and so on and so forth, but there's no, you know, kind of power, there's nobody taking the lead. And so the operators are just kind of sitting around waiting for someone to actually do the regulation. Then you have the new kind of mega constellation people who actually kind of don't want regulation until they get their satellites up, and then there can be regulation after they get their satellites up. So how do you solve this problem of the you go first? No, you go first.
Oh, yeah. Speak there.
I think this is really, very honestly, left up to the experts. These lawyers at State Department it's their business to negotiate treaties. And that is in fact what the signing of the Artemis Accords involves. There are 53 signatories now. So my advice is to leave it to the experts, because I think to myself, how are we going to get Roscosmos and the Chinese space program and NASA, which is going to get smaller as time goes on, to all agree on these things? I mean, is Roscosmos going to say, oh yeah, we'll pay a fine when we leave the satellite up there too long? I don't know. You know, so my advice is to leave it to the experts in the State Department, because they're good. I mean, they go all over the world.
Yeah, but someone has to tell them to do.
Well, exactly. And to completely blow his cover, there's a lawyer right in front of you.
Yeah.
All right.